Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to the Council's budget meeting. Will you all please remain standing whilst the Reverend David Gerard leads the Council in prayer.
Let us pray. Holy Father, we pray for our nation. The next couple of weeks may well be some of the most politically important in recent history. So we pray for our leaders, for our MPs. We pray for wisdom. We pray for understanding. We pray that they would put the needs of all at the forefront of their decision making. And Lord, we pray that you would keep this nation united together, that you would seek to bring understanding and mutual support where it is needed. Lord, we pray for this metropolitan district, and as we come together to we pray for wisdom here. We pray that the needs of the most desperate would not be forgotten. We pray that the money would be divided well. We pray that you would bring your outcomes. And as we discuss these things, may we have an attitude of mutual listening and understanding and coming together for the common good of those we are elected to serve. Closer to home, we pray for the family and friends of Peter Fox, and pray for your comfort and peace for them at this difficult time. And Lord, we ask all these things in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Agenda item 2 on the Council summons is to receive disclosures by members of interest in matters under consideration. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves and their particular interest clearly and complete the usual yellow form before the end of the meeting. I would remind members that the dispensation was granted to all members of this Council to enable them to participate and vote on the Council's budget and setting of the council tax. Firstly, colleagues, are there any disclosable pecuniary interests to be declared? Are there any other interests to be declared?
Mr. Mayor, I'm a trustee of the Hepworth. I've been told I can speak on this occasion.
Councillor Hemingway. Thank you, Councillor Hemingway.
I'm a friend of the Hepworth. I don't know whether I can speak on it or not.
Are there any others? Councillor Carrington?
Yeah, I just want to declare that I work for a trade union.
Thank you. Are there any others? If not, thank you. Agenda item 3 on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. In advance of the meeting, I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Eyre, Mrs Crew, Miss Loughran, Councillor Shaw. I have also received apologies from the Chief Executive, Miriam McRae. If there are any further apologies, would you please identify the members concerned clearly, one after the other? Thank you. Councillor Collins. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is to deal with such announcements as I may decide to lay before Council. The Mayoress and I celebrated Burns Night recently with the Caledonian Society. You will all be pleased to know that we survived the Gay Gordons. I was delighted to officially open the annual Festival of Food, Drink and Rhubarb to the city last week. A tremendous event for the district which was well attended. I have heard the sad news that ex-rugby player Peter Fox, brother of Neil, passed away yesterday. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends. May I remind Council that in accordance with the relevant regulations, both votes taken at today's Budget Council meeting will be recorded. Finally, colleagues, a copy of the running order and procedure for today's meeting is available in the chamber. As a point of explanation, the order will be: the Leader of the Council has, if he requires, up to an hour to speak on the budget proposals. The Deputy Leader will second the budget proposals and have up to 15 minutes to speak. We will then take any questions for clarification purposes on the Cabinet budget proposals. The Opposition Group Leader will then be asked to speak on the proposals and move the amendment to the budget proposal. He also has, if he requires it, an hour to speak. The Opposition Group Deputy Leader will then be given up to 15 minutes to also speak on the proposals and amendment. I will then open the meeting up to Council to comment on the amendment. Any member wishing to contribute to the debate will be given 5 minutes. Before taking the amendment proposals to the vote, Councillor Ahmed shall be allowed to sum up. The Chief Legal Officer will then undertake a record vote on the amendment. If the amendment fails, it will then open the meeting up to Council to comment on the original budget proposals. Any member wishing to contribute to the debate will be given 5 minutes. Before taking the original budget proposals to the vote, the Leader will be allowed to respond. The Chief Legal Officer will then undertake one recorded vote on the revenue budget and the Council tax, the capital programme and the Treasury management reports. We shall now proceed with the agenda. Agenda items 5 and 6 are to consider the Council's revenue budget, Council tax proposals, capital and investment strategy, capital programme and the Treasury management reports. Cabinet considered the proposals contained in the reports on the 12th of February and agreed the recommendations should be submitted to Council for approval. I now call upon the Leader to move the report.
Mr Mayor, colleagues, less than 4 weeks ago, Lord Porter, the Conservative Chairman of the Local Government Association, warned that councils in England are facing an £8 billion funding gap. He called on his own government to make sure that councils are financially viable. A government that only last year said that austerity was over. Colleagues, those of us in controlling local government know that austerity is far from over. 2 weeks ago, the Institute for Fiscal Studies said that the government must find an extra £5 billion in this year's spending review alone to even begin meeting that claim. And what's more, we know that northern towns and cities have been hit hardest by austerity. In January, the Centre for Cities Outlook for 2019 showed that Wakefield has had the 4th largest reduction in local government spending since 2010, some 30%. That's meant that we've lost £484 per head of population in less than 10 years. Despite that, Mr Mayor, the Conservatives in Wakefield have said that austerity should continue. We on this side don't agree. But as Lord Porter says, if the government won't fund local government properly, then the victims would include those who value clean streets, green spaces and roads fit for purpose. In addition, the government's refusal to address the long-term funding of adult social care has become a national scandal. Colleagues, it is against that background that I present the controlling group's budget this afternoon. Our robust and effective financial management has enabled us to deliver a balanced budget through years of austerity. But once again, we are forced to make some tough decisions. Our budget challenge in 2019-20 is £22.2 million. That's made up of a significant increase in the demand for services for both adults and children, rising costs and further government cuts to council funding. Our proposals for responding to this challenge have been shaped by our residents, with several hundred of them sharing their views with us. They said they want us to work with partners to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, support older and vulnerable adults, keep streets clean and improve and maintain the district's roads. You can see that our residents often have different and competing needs, and balancing those requirements is not always easy, but it has been at the forefront of our decision making. I'll briefly outline some of the key proposals contained in the budget report. We're proposing to reduce payments to the Hepworth as it becomes more self-sustainable. This will save £120,000. We're proposing to drive further efficiencies from across financial, legal, HR and IT services to save £700,000. There will be some changes to some of the bin rounds, for example going at different times of the day to reduce costs, whilst maintaining the frequency of collections. This will save us £40,000. We'll implement more efficient ways of working with a stronger commercial focus across a range of services and explore different ways of working. This will achieve savings of £400,000. We hope to recruit more in-house foster care replacements, improving outcomes for our young people, whilst also helping to save £130,000. We'll provide more good quality local residential accommodation to support children in care, avoiding placing children outside of the district. This will save some £530,000. Our approach to charging and commercialisation are two areas in which our residents have very strong views. The budget consultation shows significant support for us introducing new charges for some services that are currently free. 3/4 of people supported this approach, and almost 90% of people believe we should develop more commercial services to sell to other organisations. The ways in which we propose to act on this feedback are contained in the report before you today. Mr. Mayor, our residents told us they were supportive of raising council tax to support the delivery of key services, as well as raising the social care precept. I'm therefore proposing a council tax increase of 2.99%. This will add 51 pence a week to Band-Aid properties. I'm also recommending that we implement the adult social care precept of 1%, which will add a further 17% a week. This means a total increase of 68 pence per week for a person living in a Band-Aid property. Colleagues, that will enable us to continue providing a range of first-class services and is very much in line with the wishes of our residents. At the same time, we'll continue our work to strengthen the local economy. Support for new business and our success in attracting new housing developments means that we're raising an extra £11.2 million through both economic and housing growth. Independent analysis by PwC, published at the end of 2018, showed that Wakefield and Castleford are among the most improved citizen towns in the UK for good growth. The Council remains determined to boost skills, ambition and opportunity for every resident, from early years into retirement. We want to invest in the potential of our city, towns and smaller communities, so that everyone benefits from investment, business growth and tourism. We hope that eventually all our communities will be recognised for good growth. In a few days' time, we'll be hosting our first ever High Street Summit as we help to redefine our city and town centres amidst the global decline of the retail sector. The Council's role is to bring together business representatives, landlords, young people and others to identify and deliver solutions, putting our district ahead of the game in what is a rapidly changing environment. I'm pleased to announce that Bill Grimsey has accepted my invitation to visit Wakefield in April, and I'm sure members will find his contribution both interesting and stimulating. Mr. Mayor, we know that small businesses make up a huge proportion of the local economy. The Wakefield district has the fourth. We'll continue to give support and advice to help enterprise grow and develop, enabling even more jobs to be created. We continue to attract inward investment, which will bring both more jobs and higher level skills to the district, in particular for our young people. We hope that the final phase of the waterfront regeneration at Rutland Mills will start this summer. This 3-year programme will create 415 construction jobs and will eventually deliver about 750 jobs in the creative industries. The new hotel development at Bretton is due to open in 2021. As well as delivering a high-quality hotel, it will also create several hundred jobs across a mixture of sectors. The courthouse renovation is still on programme to be completed by June of this year, and we're negotiating with a major company to convert the old police station into a hotel, which will further benefit the local economy. The new leisure centre to be built in Pontefract Park has now received planning permission and will shortly be launching a Nottingham master plan along with further investment proposals. We continue to make a significant mark in the areas of culture and creativity, with the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, the Hepworth Wakefield and Production Park all putting us on the map, both nationally and internationally. We recently beat off stiff competition from across the country and received over £4 million of government funding to support and expand our cultural ambitions. This will bring 600 jobs to the district and help develop new skills and new technology, building on our strong cultural offer. Although we value our cultural offer for its own sake, we know it's had a huge positive impact on the local economy, with many millions of pounds being spent locally by visitors from all over the world. Colleagues, that's why the Conservative amendment regarding the Hepworth is short-sighted and fails to understand what's needed to help the High Street survive. Mr. Mayor, we continue to deliver some first-class local services, and can I pay tribute to our hard-working and dedicated staff who invariably go above and beyond the call of duty in serving local people. On this side of the chamber, we value the work carried out by our trade union colleagues on behalf of their members. At a time when jobs and services are under threat from Conservative cuts, it's vital that we engage effectively with our employees. We should therefore continue to invest in good industrial relations and reject the Tory amendment which seeks to stop the funding for conveners. During today's debate, I've asked Cabinet members to give details of some of the specific services we'll be delivering in the next 12 months. Margaret Isherwood will no doubt give an update on children's services. The government have acknowledged that we have responded robustly and at pace to the challenges facing children's services, but we're not complacent. The demand in our children's services is still rising, with many children needing more complex care. Today's proposals ensure that the necessary financial resources are made available to help us meet those challenges and that demand. Colleagues, we're also committed to working with our local communities. By continuing the Neighbourhood Improvement Fund, we hope to create even stronger links between the Council and those many local community organisations who provide an invaluable contribution across every part of the district. Wakefield also leads the Key Cities Group, which is now the country's biggest urban lobbying group, with 26 cities of all political persuasions in membership. And we have a strong all-party parliamentary group to help raise our case at ministerial level. As you know, the Secretary of State has ruled out the One Yorkshire devolution proposal. As Council is aware, my personal preference has always been for a city-region model rather than a county-wide solution, because that will enable us to deliver the biggest growth in the shortest time. I hope that the government will now work with us to deliver a city-region deal as quickly as possible, because our existing growth deal runs out in 2021, so time is of the essence. I'm meeting the Secretary of State on Friday and will ensure that he understands Wakefield's position. Finally, colleagues, I want to make it clear that a Labour-controlled council will always help those whose lives have been blighted by austerity. As I've said, although the local Conservatives want austerity to continue, we don't. It's interesting that the Home Secretary has recently admitted that there is indeed a direct link between universal credit and the increase in the use of food banks, something we on this side of the chamber have been saying for months. In 2010, there were 3 food banks in Wakefield. There are now 19. By 2021, there will be £166 million less benefits paid to Wakefield residents than there was in 2010, a fall of £790 per person for every adult in the district. Wages for men have seen a real-term loss of £69 per week between 2010 and 2017, whilst the figure for women is a loss of £29 per week. Child poverty affects 30% of children, with that figure predicted to rise by 37% to 37% by 2021. 1 in 8 workers live in poverty, and 47% of adults on low income spend more than a third of their income on housing costs. Mr. Mayor, I could reel off even more statistics, but they can't really tell you the human cost of austerity, the living from hand to mouth, the worry, and for too many people, the feeling of isolation and constant insecurity. We already do a significant amount of work to address poverty, and we are looking at what more we can do. This work will involve our key partners from the police, health and housing, as well as the third sector. Mr. Mayor, we can't do everything we want to help our residents who find themselves in this position. But on behalf of the Labour group, I can promise you that we'll do everything we can. Everything. Mr. Mayor, those of us who've been on the council since 2010 have seen the toughest of times, and we've had to make some really tough decisions. But the controlling group believes that in the context I've set out, today's budget is one that achieves the best balance between meeting the savings I've outlined whilst continuing to provide some great local services. I move the report and ask you to reject the amendment. Thank you.
Is this seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor. This budget sets out how we as a council are responding to the challenges that face people across this district, to the challenges of a decade of year-on-year reduced government funding, to the challenges that face our businesses, to the challenge that face our city and town centres, to the challenges that face our communities and our most vulnerable residents. What this budget shows is that this council is working hard and succeeding in meeting those challenges, despite the systematic destruction in local government by this Tory government. They've set about year in, year out since 2010 to destroy local government, but they won't succeed. We'll do everything we can for our district and our residents. We are continuing to invest in the Wakefield district, improve services and help our people and places go forward. That work is a tribute to members, officers and staff at all levels, and I hope councillors across this chamber will join me in thanking those who day in and day out work hard for residents and communities. They are the people who will make this budget real. They are the ones who will deliver on the promises on this budget. Our capital programme is ambitious and will make a real difference across our communities. This is a budget that will make every pound that we bring into this district count, and a council that works for the people that we represent. I second this motion and commend the budget and the capital programme to council.
Before we move on, does any member of council have any questions for clarification on the budget proposals? Councillor Ahmed, as leader of the Conservative group, would you like to speak on the proposals and move your amendment to the Cabinet's budget proposals? You have up to 1 hour to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In proposing the Conservative group amendment, I would like to place on record our thanks to officers for their hard work in preparing this budget and for their assistance preparing our group proposals. We recognise that local government, otherwise we wouldn't be here, provide local services to local residents, from emptying bins, street lighting, gritting roads and protecting vulnerable people, young and elderly as well. Tackling antisocial behaviour and environment crimes like the scourge of fly tipping. And we appreciate the council up and down the country have had their prioritised their spending to the needs of their most needy, especially when they are increasing cost pressures like vulnerable children and adult care. The Conservative group proposals provide a much welcome additional boost for our residents and local businesses, and a plan that takes actions on the people's priorities. And this is feedback that I've received, a number of actions of online and feedback that I've got from people. Our policy, and I know the Councillor Box referred to 2 areas, which I'll hopefully address in the speech here as well. Policy proposal introduces a 2 hour of free parking for residents throughout the week. It's a much needed and welcome proposal that lends vital support to local business on the high street who are facing increased pressures from out-of-town retail parks. We see Meadowhall, you can see Leeds outside of there, so basically free parking and online shopping, which we've all recognised in the council chamber. And it will go, not all way, but it will go somewhere to help alleviate those pressures. Local residents have been making this case to us for a long time now. You can just listen to that, we see that. And we've listened and acted and hope that the party opposite, and asked members opposite to actually look at that proposal and join us this afternoon in supporting our local businesses by backing it. And the second part of the proposal that we did with trade union conveners, and I say this as a member of 2 trade unions, that I've asked for the abolition of trade union conveners, not for political purposes, but for those like myself and people around here who pay to pay trade unions. That cost should be met by the individual members, not by councils. And the cost to the council and Wakefield residents is £277,000. And it must be a duty, I believe, that of trade unions to them to support their members, and they must do so from their own subscription paid by their own members and not rely on taxpayers to foot the bill. And I think, and I believe, and the Conservatives believe, that it's a reasonable request that anyone who's a member of a trade union relies on the support that the union give them, but it's not a duty for councils to be providing that measure itself. But I do fear, as I've already seen from Councillor Box's speech, that actually you will put forward the needs of the trade union instead of the needs of the people in the district. I believe that our proposals put the people of the district first. If we ask people out there, they would say that they'd rather have that money spent on free parking or other things in there rather than trade union conveners. I plan to save £118,000 by moving towards whole council elections. I think it's a reasonable proposal. It doesn't affect democracy, reduces the costs, and actually helps residents understand who their elected councillors are and what they do. So it's one election every 4 years opposed to 3 elections every 4 years. A sensible cost saving, I believe, that will be welcomed by residents. And it's already, when we did the proposal online on the Facebook page of Wakefield Express, etc., was recognised as a proposal that people favoured as well. Conservative proposals are fairness and compassion at their core. Costed proposals that include paying national insurance contributions on allowances payable to our district foster carers to reward them for the great work that they do throughout the year. Providing blue badges for people with hidden disabilities is a much welcome initiative that will go away some way to help address the anxiety that comes from even the littlest of tasks like going to the shops. And we hope that this policy will go some way to improve their lives, and we wholeheartedly endorse it. I know some of my colleagues want to speak further on these measures later in the debate and to our amendment. Our action plan for potholes, which is an issue that we all come across all the time, see the claim culture on that as well, a real concern for residents who are rightly sick and tired of them and the nuisance, danger and the expense that they cause. Our Conservative budget proposals include a costed plan to action to fix 5,000 more over and above what is currently provided in the Labour proposal today, and we look forward to having their support for them. The Conservative group recognises motorists' misery and have taken action in our amendments to some way to address this, and I hope today that people around the chamber, from the Labour Party mainly, will look at these proposals rather than look at them in their entirety and vote against their party for the first time ever. So the proposal that the Conservative group put forward today is a member to the capital budget as sensible, a cabinet budget as a sensible, ambitious, costed and compassionate plan that deserves support from all councils in the chamber. And this is from the council report here. So this budget that we propose, the amendments, will not materially impact on the overall robustness of the council budget for 2019-20 or the adequacy of the council's reserves as of 31st March 2020. The budget is fully costed. It's an amendment. It's a reasonable amendment, and it allows everyone in the chamber to look at that and vote for them. So we commend this to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Sanders, as Deputy Leader of the Conservative Group, would you now wish to comment on the proposals and second the amendment to the Cabinet's budget proposals? You have up to 15 minutes to speak.
Second the amendment, Mr Mayor, and I'll speak immediately.
Speaking now.
Yes. Mr Mayor, I second the Conservatives group amendment to the budget. The amendment improves the Cabinet's budget proposals. It also sets out the Wakefield Conservative group's 5-point plan. Cutting the cost of politics by moving towards all council elections. One local election every 4 years to elect the whole council, saving taxpayers £118,000. We are taking the urgent action required to provide an economic stimulus to our towns and city centres by introducing 2 hours of free parking to help our local businesses on the High Street compete with the out-of-town retail parks. Doing the right thing for all our district foster carers by paying their Class 2 national insurance contributions to enable them to qualify for sick and maternity pay as well as pensions in retirement. The Conservative group leading the way for foster carers and the important job they do each and every day, showing that it is the Conservative group who are standing up for them. Doing the right thing for all those with hidden disabilities by providing them and their families with a blue badge. This simple measure will go some way in helping to improve their quality of life and making little tasks like getting to the shops a lot less stressful. The Conservative group recognises the poor state of our district's roads, whilst welcoming the government's extra £420 million funding given to local authorities in the last budgets earmarked for pothole repairs. The Wakefield Conservative group further recognises residents' concerns on this matter and have put forward additional proposals in the amendment to fund the repair of 5,000 potholes in the incoming municipal year. This is extra investment that will only come with the support of the party opposite. This amendment contains our 5-point plan, an ambitious, straightforward, costed, compassionate package of proposals that puts residents first. It will be taken on a recorded vote. We hope that the Labour group opposite will support them. It is a straightforward choice. Point 1, for or against, cutting the cost of politics by moving towards all council elections. Point 2, for or against, backing our local businesses on our high streets by providing 2 hours free parking in our towns and city centres. Point 3, for or against, backing our district foster carers. Point 4, for or against, backing all our residents who have an hidden disability. And point 5, for or against, boosting investment in local roads by providing the vital resources to fix 5,000 extra potholes, alleviating motorist misery. It goes without saying that this Conservative group will proudly vote for these common sense proposals, all costed without affecting any residents. We now look to see how the party opposite will act, backing residents by backing the amendment or voting against the amendment and voting against the people who this amendment seeks to support. I too would like to extend thanks to council officers for their help and advice on preparing this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. I will now take comments on the amended budget as proposed by Councillor Ahmed. This is subject to the normal 5-minute rule and members are only permitted to speak once on the proposal. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Isherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm talking on the amendment in relation to the foster carers issue that both the leader and the deputy leader of the opposition raised. If they'd attended the briefing that we had prior to the council meeting, they would have seen a very good report from officers in regards to foster carers and what we intend to do about foster carers. Yes, they are an important part of our organisation. Yes, we do need more. At the moment, we spend £3.6 million on private fostering arrangements which needs to be tackled. But the way we will be tackling it, and the way we are tackling it, is by looking at the offer that is going out to foster carers
and improving that offer to make it more competitive. To say that, to intimate that we don't care about our foster carers is wrong, because we do care about them. They're a vital part of what we need to do to improve our children's services, and we will be looking at how we can make their offer much better.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm speaking against the amendment for the following reasons. The Conservatives have 7 points on their amendment, although Councillor Sanders says 5, so that's good economics for a Conservative group. Most have been brought down from the loft and dusted down from their 2018 and 17 budget amendments. Having read their amendments, I have great difficulty understanding how they have come up with these proposals. Surely, after reading the budget document of 80 pages, which has costings for every department, they can only recycle the same old items as before. There is nothing on adult social care, probably because they are embarrassed to admit their government budget cuts have cause of putting more and more pressure on these services for local people. They have just come up with a number of £724,000 from 2 departments and split it up. Let's look at one of their amendments, item 4 of 7, not 5. I question how they have come up with that number of 275,000. Where is there evidence to see how that would work? What research have they carried out, and where does this 2 hours come from? There is no documented or factual evidence in their amendment to justify that proposal. If they had bothered to research the facts and figures and look at the evidence, they would see that the Hepworth has brought hundreds of thousands of people into the Wakefield district, and they have spent almost £30 per person in the district. So I wonder whether they have done any research at all, and if so, where have they done it? Because Toys R Us have been closed for a while. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Excuse me. I'd just like to make a few comments regards in-house foster carers, and I did attend the briefing before budget this meeting today, council today, and nobody's implying for a moment that you don't care. Nobody said that. We didn't say that. Yeah? No, we didn't. We didn't. What we said was we're encouraging changes. Okay? Now, the term after the horse has bolted springs to mind here, okay? And it is good to see good work being done, but it should have been done a long, long time ago. And what we're trying to do now, I've been to a lot of briefings, and we're desperately, desperately short of in-house foster carers. Really, really need them badly, but in order to get them, we have to give them a package, an attractive package that lasts a lifetime, that gives them something at the end of it, because it's a committed, hard and very dedicated job to do. You know, we want to keep them. So having national insurance contributions paid to them so they can get a pension at the end of it, they can get the help that they need along the way, that is not a bad thing to ask for, and it's something that I would really recommend that you consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holwell.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to speak on the first of the 7, and this is about the Hepworth. And first of all, let me state that I'm a member of the Friends of the Hepworth. I'm fully supportive of the Hepworth in its role as an international art gallery that has brought immense kudos to Wakefield. I am also mindful of its role in the refurbishment and regeneration of Wakefield waterfront and the Kirgate area of Wakefield. But I'm a former governor of the Wakefield Permanent Art Fund, which were the friends of the original art gallery on Wendell Street. And we raised money voluntarily to buy works of art for Wakefield, which are very valuable, a very valuable asset now, and form part of the permanent collection that we gave to Wakefield. Our remaining funds were passed to the Hepworth in line with the Charity Commission requirements. I therefore speak with love of the Hepworth and hope for its spectacular future However, I see that it is now capable of attracting major funding from other sources and from its commercial activities. Whilst it might have been right to give substantial funding to the Hepworth in the beginning, I now feel that an acceleration and increased reduction in the services concession agreement could be feasible and possible without detriment to the Hepworth. It is now so well established that, as I have said earlier, alternative funding and income are more than possible. The 500k could then be used elsewhere for the benefit of Wakefield and its citizens, directed to other activities and services that will benefit the more needy in our society who find it hard to manage. I think this will be seen as beneficial to Wakefield as a whole, and would still have the past record of helping the Hepworth gain its reputation, which will carry it forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holwell. Can I just inform the meeting that if you're going to speak and you've got a speech in front of you, then the rest of the chamber can't hear you through the microphone. This side can't hear you, Councillor Holwell. So if you're going to speak and you've got a speech, keep it away from your microphone, if you would, please. The next one is Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note in the second proposal of the amendment, the members opposite have an aversion to union conveners receiving remuneration from the authority for the role they provide. I do not think that they appreciate the very demanding, multifaceted tasks involved in undertaking this position. As a one-time convener for this authority, plus 40 years employed by this authority, I feel sufficiently qualified in explaining, albeit briefly, the role of a trade union representative, which involves industrial relations, which we've enjoyed for a very long time with the council, and providing good quality services, ensuring we get good trade union representatives to all the workers, all the employers. We have fair and just terms and conditions negotiated. Employment law legislation is adhered to, which is nationally agreed, by the way. Women's rights, including maternity leave, paternity leave. We are an advocacy service. Amateur solicitors, call us everything. We're all things to everyone. And we, just to mention, there are a few, I could go on. And it's not just about bringing the workforce out, all out, rag trade, let's go out on strike. It's not about that. That is the very last thing that we all ever have to do. And I worked for social services, and it was long and hard that we all thought to go out on strikes. And I can't remember the last strike we had here. So a good few years ago. It's about maintaining good relations with all parties, including non-trade union members. If it were left to you opposite, we could have total chaos, with no services left to offer, or derogatory zero-hour contracts, perhaps. Anyone which is having to work with that, it creates uncertainty, poverty, and, well, this austerity is continuing and will continue if you'll continue with your policies. We'll create, probably, food banks, clothing banks on every street corner. So, you know, why do you need to get rid of a trade union or trade union representatives? What is that going to achieve? What can you offer in place of that? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hadn't intended to speak, but I feel needs must. And I'm going to oppose this amendment set down by this Conservative group, and I'll tell you why. Because it's clear to everybody on this side of the chamber that it's opportunistic, short-term headline grabbing, and does absolutely nothing for the continuity and the good causes this council has to offer the people of Wakefield and in the surrounding areas. I'm no fan of the Epworth, and the Epworth isn't the biggest thing on my agenda. But I do take the view that I do listen to the experts. Some people don't, but I do. And if the experts are telling me that the Epworth is bringing in X number of pounds and footfall to make this place more viable, well, I can certainly live with that. On the issue of trade union conveners, well, they come with it every year. Well, I think a lot of that's been covered, and we see the trade unions. This council has taken probably 60p in the pound cuts over the last 10 years. And to achieve the services and to achieve the work that we've had to do, we have had to engage with our trade union colleagues across this organisation to make that work. And I think to try to suggest, as they do every bloody year, that trade union conveners are the scourge of this council, I think is disrespectful to trade union conveners and people in this county who's fought for trade union recognition for more years than I care to remember. But my biggest concern is this pathetic cry about all-out 4-year elections. There ain't enough democracy within this council, and if it were left to me, I'd make them stand every 12 months, because I tell you what it would create, because we see it already. I'm sick to death of coming here and seeing some members that sit opposite us literally sit on their hands, and they think the only thing they have to do is to stick their head up in April, dish out a few leaflets and get elected to this council and offer absolutely nothing to the running and the good fortune of this council. And I think it's a cop-out. It is an absolute cop-out to try to suggest that we can have a savings of all-out elections. 161 metropolitan authorities have third elections, and they've been quite successful and have changed councils' colours over the years since their inception in 1974. And I'm not going to go any further because I know time is short, but when I look at the other suggestions, our colleague Councillor Johnson has looked at the issues of where else we've brought them out of the loft and dusted them down. But I tell you what, I just want to finish on this point. When I hear the opposition talking about compassion, it makes my blood boil. Because we sat here today talking about a blue badge scheme. These 3 parts of our people have lost the blue badges because that's what shifted the mobility component of them, and they can't get a blue badge because the benefit's been stopped. So we don't take lectures from that side of the chamber about people talking about compassion and disabled people that have done more to harm the disabled people of this county, this government, and abetted by that lot than anybody else in history. So we don't need lessons from them over there to start telling us about compassionate conservatism when we've seen people in this community have the benefits reduced, have had the multibility reduced, have had cars come and taken off them, and we're making a case about blue badges to increase footfall within our local cities and communities. I find it an absolute horror that they can come here today, but I will say one thing in the favour. In all the years that I've been coming here, at least for the first time today, they've put some figures, and they put some figures to the amendment or to their budget proposals, because in the past, they've actually just drawn them up back of a postage stamp. At least on this occasion, they've put them on a fact packet. Oppose this amendment.
Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, when I look on the amendment that the Conservatives put forward, an increase of 275k to the Regenerate Economic Growth Directorate budget to fund the introduction of 2 hours of free car parking in the city and the town centres. That will introduce, yes, Mr Mayor, a set 2 hours once a week at some time in the week. It wouldn't set 2 hours at any time free car parking. So I think the Tories are misleading on that one. I go on, Mr Mayor, and he's talking about introducing more potholes. Mr Mayor, this council has already agreed to increase an additional £3 million per year into the highways network to put more potholes, to do more of our roads. But once again, local authorities up and down the country having to put that money in to look after the potholes because the Tory government has completely disengaged themselves from looking after the highways network. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition makes reference to the pothole money that the Minister of State for Transport announced last year after the cold weather, a one-off grant. That's all it was to local government. In the bigger picture, Wakefield got just short of £2 million for that. You cannot and should not, and it's just impossible, to maintain the district's highways on one-off grants. It is near impossible. There's a national crisis in the highways of this country. The Tories are failing to look after or failing to fund. All we can come back to is go back to the citizens of the districts and let them pay again. It is wrong, Mr Mayor. When you see what they're spending on HS2 and other fantasy schemes up and down that can sort our highway networks out. Mr Mayor, I don't know where they get the figures from the 3-hour car parking, but it doesn't work, and we have already put additional funding into the highways network. So, Mr Mayor, when I look down, once again, and it's all been read out, all affecting out is stuff we've tried to put forward before. What this amendment is, it's an attack on democracy, it's an attack on the workforce, and it just shows the lack of vision the opposition has for this district. Mr Mayor, I do not support this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just want to make sure that, quote Mr Tooley, Councillor Tooley, that there is not enough democracy in this chamber. So, for that reason, I would like to request the same amount of time that Councillor Tooley was given for this next speech. Thank you.
Councillor, just put you in the picture. Councillor Tooley had another 9 seconds to go before his time was up.
Thank you. So, my point is, I'm standing up to speak in support of this amendment of my group, Conservative group, and we are, for the record, a compassionate party, better than the opposition. Let me tell you why. So I have a little story, Mr. Mayor, to tell you today, and it is in particular about the pothole. Last year this time, I went out to campaign for my local election. I talked to Arthur in Middletown, and this is Thornhill Close. He came out, he didn't like me, not because of my skin colour, he didn't like me because the leaflet colour is not what he used to like. But I have to say he voted for me. So Arthur told me that the road outside his house for 47 years has not been surfaced. There are more than 20-odd potholes there, more than 20-odd, okay? So I went back after I got elected and saying, what can we do about it? He said, look, we have talked to the MP, we have talked to the council for numerous times, and we got promised in 2014 to say, it's coming in 4 years' time. 2018, I was told by this council, no, there's still no money, cannot be done, okay? So on Monday, I came again to see Councillor Morley's consultation event, and straight away, actually, luckily, this morning, Alison sent me an email to say, Councillor Harvey, I have registered your request on this pothole in Middletown. So this email, I was so pleased to see. So straight away, I grabbed the phone to call Mrs. Stews, and I was told that this ex-miner, this community worker for so many years, has just passed away Christmas time. He has never even lived to see the pothole to be repaired in our district. 40-odd years of Labour Council. Are you sure you really can afford to say no to these 5,000 potholes to be repaired from the budget? And I know, let's talk about the budget. There are so many £1 million, actually. It's not quite accountable. That's another matter. We will talk later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Spade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, can I actually thank Councillor Holwell, because you made some very
very positive comments there about Hepworth, and I do know that you value it. I've seen you there, and I do know that, like me, you recognise its economic and cultural benefits. And our proposal is to reduce the concession, but to reduce it over 4 years. Because, like you say, we've recognised too that it is now a more sustainable organisation than it was originally. However, and we also have the intention with those monies to actually use that for community cultural programmes right across the district. So up to that point, I think we're pretty much in other like mind there. However, your amendment talks about accelerating that increase. But it doesn't actually say, so I'm not quite sure. We were looking at 4 years to get to that amount, but were you looking at doing it in 1 year, 2 year? But okay, let's say 1 or 2. Let's say 1 or 2 years to accelerate it. Maybe if we go on that. My concern there is that if we were to increase to that level, then we would be taking probably about, I think it's about a sixth of the organisation's operating costs away from it. To do that in one swoop would be absolutely catastrophic for the organisation. There's no doubt about it that it would have serious repercussions. The council has a legal liability for the Hepworth, so if we were to do that and the worst happened and the whole thing collapsed, we would have to come in and it would cost us anyway more than that 500,000. So I think to a certain degree that we're in alignment, but actually I think there is one of your government members recently said that the Conservatives used to be known as the party of business and economic competence. And I think they were using the right phrase there in that they were referring to that in the past tense. Because I think if you were to take that 500,000 in 1 or even 2 bites, if it were, it would be catastrophic and it would be removing the rug of financial stability from the Hepworth and we would see its decline. So I think at the best, the proposal is naive, but at the worst, I think it is financially incompetent.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, are there any more speakers? Councillor Stansby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right, okay. Where do we start? First of all, thank you for the council officers who've been involved in the budget process. Can't have been easy to put together and make very difficult decisions across a whole range of issues, so thank you for that. As an accountant, on a very wonderful 0-hour contract, which I'm very happy with and wouldn't be without, it's my job to ensure that budgets are set with a pragmatic and prudent approach, with short-term planning being underpinned by long-term aspirations for financial stability with opportunities for growth and investment. Any sensible plan needs to incorporate provision for what would be called a rainy day. Despite what the Labour Group believe, it is actually possible to run out of money. We have now reached our rainy day, and with that in mind, I do reluctantly accept that taking advantage of the council tax freeze grant would not be appropriate this time. However, having taken the time to review the council's accounts over the past 10 years, without a great deal of trouble, I have identified millions of pounds of wasted money. Examples include PFI contracts which haven't been delivered, purchasing software that isn't fit for purpose, speculating to accumulate, that's actually been said, with taxpayers' money, property deals that are going to cost this council millions, and lost interest in Icelandic bank deposits. I have been asked not to highlight some of these wastages due to their commercial sensitivity. However, it's my duty to the people I represent to expose this wastage and to ensure it doesn't happen in the future. The proposed increase in council tax is said to raise an additional 4 million, which would cover the cost of some of these commercially sensitive mistakes. Why should the taxpayers in Wakefield foot the bill for bad management? Of course, politically it suits the Labour group to consistently mention austerity as the cause of all our problems, but it wasn't the Conservatives who made the decisions that have cost this authority millions. A question I'd like to ask the Labour administration is whether it's more important to engage in pointless political point scoring or to actually do a job and use the taxpayers' money wisely on services that matter to people. For example, the Blue Badge scheme for hidden disabilities and to ensure that our foster carers are looked after. We can do this. We can look after our foster carers by paying their Class 2 National Insurance contributions, whether they are looking after children or not, and ensure that they have a pension to claim at the end of their hard-working life. Knowing that Wakefield Council is there for the foster carers will encourage more people to register as carers. History has shown that children in care have better outcomes when fostered in-house. We've heard it this morning. More foster carers would mean children being sent out of district is less likely. Offsetting the cost of this scheme is so simple. You cannot vote against this. We hear every improvement meeting, we hear how vital it is that we recruit more foster carers. I know you're looking at it, Margaret, and really appreciate it, but today we have an opportunity to actually do something right now and to do the right thing because we can and not delay it any further. I'm also advocating extending the Blue Badge scheme to make it available to those with hidden disabilities. Although the government, despite what Mr Tully said, announced in October last year that the Blue Badge scheme will be given to those with hidden disabilities, it does require further legislation before that can happen. I'm proposing that the Council lead the way and make Blue Badges available to all ages. Did you know that many people with hidden disabilities and their carers find it difficult to access shops, cafes, restaurants and activities because they need easy access to the cars? If, for example, they have a meltdown in public and can't find a safe space, for example, their car, to calm down, this leaves people who are already struggling feeling isolated and lonely and possibly leading to even more serious mental health issues. When we have the opportunity today to vote for something that can actually help people in Wakefield, I really don't understand why you wouldn't take that opportunity. With this in mind, I mean, I support the amendment and I can't see why you would choose to fund trade union conveners instead of using the money to make people's lives in Wakefield better.
Thank you, Councillor Stansley. Councillor Harvey, you indicated to speak. You've had your turn. Councillor Bucks, on legal advice, you can't speak now. No? 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 Councillor Swift?
It was a point of order, Mr Mayor, but Councillor Stansby did eventually move on to talking about the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Swift. If there are no other speakers, Councillor Hammond, would you like to sum up before we go to the vote?
Just to sum up, obviously, just going to address a few issues that were raised. And I think Wakefield District has some of the lowest literacy and numeracy levels, and I think they're not just outside in the district, I think they exist within the council chamber as well. And so when I was looking at this, Councillor Johnson asked where was the £275,000 cost. I think what we need to do is a simple page document to explain to him that when a budget is done and the costings are done, they're done by council officers. So unless he's bringing the question into how the £275,000 is actually done by officers in the council and costs, and that's how budgets work. So just his understanding of that is quite limited, or maybe his understanding of literacy, his literacy understanding of that is so just that is it's your understanding of it. So it's important that I address that is actually costed, and it says that within the amendment. If you read on the page there, 3.4, etc. From their comments on the proposed amendment, 3.1 all the way to 3.4, A, B, C and D, you'll read why and how the money has come from and who it's done by. So it's just a future prospect for you to understand, so you can hopefully bring your understanding up to a level to contribute to debates on these matters. So in terms of the money reduction of the Hepworth, it's not a closure programme, as you can see. And that's clearly evident inside there. It doesn't say let's close the Hepworth and save X amount of money. It's saying that the Hepworth itself is an important part of the district alongside other things in the district as well. But it's saying that actually the Hepworth now should be able to sustain itself, as Councillor Holwell raised, and actually Councillor Tully said the same thing in a similar way. And under amongst his ramblings in there, that's what he said. And but you know, so that, you know, in terms of trade union conveners, I know you like to claim yourself as some sort of like Robin Hoods or something like that. If we actually look at trade union conveners, it doesn't. There's nowhere in there it says the ending of cessation of trade union conveners does not mean the representation of trade unions inside the council ends. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that as a trade union member, you pay, in most cases, around £300 a year, or something like that, similar towards the cost of a union to do. I pay it. So, okay, so I know how much I pay. So that's how much members pay, and they have that right to representation, legal right to representation. And actually, that should be met by me as a member, that cost of that union. So my membership should include that, and the number of members that you've got in there should be able to pay for legal representation, the costs, etc. And that's what it's there to do, is to make sure that the member itself is not having to pay significant legal costs or representation in there. And the convener itself, in industrial disputes, being part of the negotiations, they can be part of that without being a convener. And actually, if we look at trade unions themselves, their executives, if we look at their salaries, I'm sure they can fund them themselves. I can list numerous examples of salaries in excess of £100,000 for trade union chief execs, etc. £100,000. What, in terms of finally coming to Councillor Morley, I don't think I think he forgot during what he was supposed to be doing. He talks about vision. And vision is actually saying to people in Wakefield, the city centre is open. Come in here in the city centre. You know, that's what it's saying. It's saying it's not saying all the potholes will be repaired, because he knows actually the damage of potholes and roads is over successive governments. He knows that. But obviously he forgets that, or maybe he just chooses to forget it. But the fact of the matter remains that these matters, the budget proposal amendment is actually a fair, costed proposal. It's fair in terms of disabled people, saying to people with hidden disabilities like autism, things that we wouldn't see, that look, you have that freedom of movement, something simple like having a badge, being able to park in the city centre or in paid parking across there. It's simple things. Foster carers, we've said 3.6 million for private fostering arrangements. The people that have to go through 9 months, sometimes in cases, to go through the application process, it's saying to them that actually you're welcome as a foster carer. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing, the hours that you put in, the commitment with some of the most vulnerable children. And Councillor Stansby said there, if you look at the looked after children and look at their outcomes, they're some of the lowest in the whole of Europe. And the reason for that is because they don't have that stability in family care. And this is the message that we're sending out. Vision, that's vision. That's what it's saying to the people of the district, that this is, and this is where you should really look outside of politics. And actually most of you are probably sat there probably thinking, actually, we agree with this. We've probably been texted or told to vote in a certain way. And really sometimes you should vote with your conscience. Really stand outside there and look and say, actually, what's written down here today is fair, acceptable, reasonably proposed. And you probably had the same concerns about the Hepworth that we've had, of the cost. We raised it last year, some of you raised it before. It's not saying close it or anything like that. It's all reasonable stuff. It's really nitpicking that you've done at the end. And you should have just accepted it. And you won't, but you should really sit there and accept it.
Councillor Ahmed, time's up. We will now take the amended budget to the vote. To clarify this is to determine whether the amended budget from Councillor Ahmed should become the new substantive budget. We are required to take a recorded vote. I will now ask our Chief Legal Officer to take the recorded vote on the amended budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I'll now read out your names. I'd be grateful if you could indicate clearly whether you are for the amendment, against the amendment, or whether you wish to abstain. Councillor Ahmed.
Mr. Mayor, can you just use the mic, please?
Yeah.
Is that better? Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
For.
Councillor Ms Austin. Councillor Mrs Binns. Councillor Mrs Blizzard. Councillor Box. Councillor Burton.
Councillor Byford? Councillor Carrington? Councillor Ms Cruz? Councillor Mrs Cummings? Councillor Dagger? Councillor Ellis? Councillor Farmer? Councillor Forster? Councillor A. Garbett? Councillor Mrs Garbett? Councillor Michael Graham? Councillor Mrs Graham? Councillor Mrs Harvey? Councillor Hemingway? Councillor Heptonstall? Councillor Heptonstall, sorry. It's up to you. Abstain. Councillor Miss Hepworth? Councillor Mrs Holwell? Councillor Hunt? Councillor G. Isherwood? Councillor Mrs Isherwood? Councillor Mrs Jeffrey? Councillor Johnson? Councillor Jones? Councillor Keith? Councillor Mrs Kitchen? Councillor Lloyd? Councillor Mrs Lund? Councillor Mrs Malkin? Councillor Manifield? Councillor Mrs Masterman? Councillor Mrs Mitchell? Councillor Morley? Councillor Miss Picking? Councillor Mrs Rhodes? Councillor Mrs Rowley? Councillor Sanders? Councillor Mrs Scott? Councillor Ms Spate? Councillor Mrs Stamsby? Councillor Stokes? Councillor Swift? Councillor Mrs Taylor? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Tennant? Councillor Mrs Tennant King? Councillor Tully? Councillor Wallace? Councillor Ward? Councillor Wassell? Councillor Ms Whitehouse? And Councillor Ms Williams. Thank you. Yeah.
Just bear with us 2 minutes, we'll get you the figures.
Yep, agreed. No, 46.
The result is 46 against the amendment, 11 for the amendment and 1 abstention. The amendment fails. Thank you. The amended budget fails and we now revert back to the original budget as proposed by Councillor Box as set out in the agenda. Does any member wish to speak on the original budget? May I remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion or to a personal explanation or point of order. No speech may exceed 5 minutes. I have had an indication that Cabinet members wish to speak and I will take them in the order given to me. Councillor Morley.
Why do I get picked on first? Mr Mayor, we come together today to set the next municipal year budget. And although the headlines are always about cuts, we always seem to forget the positives that we are doing around the Wakefield district, especially within the transportation and highway service. Over the next 3 years, Wakefield Council will invest an extra £24.9 million capital and revenue into the road infrastructure, between what we're putting in ourselves and also what we get funded from the Department of Transport. This will enable us to repair approximately 9,000 potholes, 20 kilometres of the district's footways. We plan to resurface over 130 roads. We plan to undertake 20 drainage schemes to reduce surface water flooding with those of the most high-risk areas. We have resources to clear and clean 35,000 gullies. And we will enforce the 55,000 car parking spaces across the district and the many miles of parking zones and streets. In addition to the car parking spaces, in May, we will see the new council car park open on Barnsley Road. This will have 180 spaces, costing £2.50 to park all day. This will give a better option for commuters to park outside the city centre and be able to use Kirkgate Station and also access buses into the city. And we will work in partnership with the police, the schools and the road safety teams in initiatives and days of action outside schools and other high-risk areas. On the transport side of my service, working with the West Yorkshire Combine Authority, we will be starting work or going out to consultation on improvements to the district roads and rail network this coming financial year. Castleford rail station improvements will start later on this year, costing £1.5 million invested into that town. Ings Road scheme will go out to consultation to ease congestion in the city and will cost £4.5 million of more investment into Wakefield. Newton Bar corridor for the roundabout down there, which is badly needed to help congestion, is another £6.7 million. And proposals to ease congestion at Outwood Station car park will come to £1.3 million. Mr Mayor, these schemes, along with many others that we have in the pipeline for the district, will help ease congestion pollution and make it easier for people to get around. But Mr Mayor, I do take on board what Councillor Harvey said about the road network and what happened in their particular ward. But it's only by us as a Labour-controlled authority putting additional funding in that we're able to get around and do more potholes and more roads. But I do question that if you talk to him in May, why did it take you till nearly March to put forward the pothole to be cleared? But I'll leave that one. Mr Mayor, I support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Scarbett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think everybody's aware of the national crisis in adult social care. A lack of long-term planning by the government's social care has left thousands of elderly people uncertain about the future of cost care and how it will be paid for, and left local councils like Wakefield having to meet rising demand and increasing costs for our reducing budget. The government has delayed the publication of the Green Paper on social care 6 times now. That's how much they care about older and vulnerable people. But we do care. And I want to firstly pay tribute to our staff and our colleagues in the NHS who work every day to give the best care and support they can do to thousands of older and vulnerable people across our district. As they do a fantastic job, this year we will be supporting over 1,000 older people in residential and nursing homes, ensuring over 1 million hours of home care is provided across the district to keep people independent and living at home with their loved ones, providing new opportunities for young adults with learning disabilities, supporting many more unpaid carers and people living with dementia. Help more families than ever before to avoid losing their homes and the devastating impact that homelessness is having across the country. We try never to forget that behind every statistic is someone's mum, dad, granddad, husband or daughter. That's why the work that our staff do matters so much to us. And where the council delivers services directly to older people, we do it well. 2 of our residential homes, Hazelgarth in Nottingley and Dovecote Lodge in Horbury, were inspected by the Care Quality Commission over Christmas, and both have been awarded a good rating. This year, we will look at new opportunities to expand our in-house services, particularly in home care. We believe that too often vulnerable people in the district have not received the quality or consistency of service from the private sector that they should expect. Our staff have had to step in and support many residents this year when private companies have folded or withdrawn their services, often at short notice. But Mr Mayor, we are not just wanting to provide the very best care when people need us, we want people to lead healthy, active lives as they get older. That's why our work across the council to tackle isolation and loneliness, to promote healthy lifestyles and to give people the chance to learn in later life, to contribute to their communities and to stay connected with friends, family and community is so important. The whole council contributes to this ambition and it makes sense financially for ensuring good lives in the district. But again, Mr Mayor, our ability to invest in prevention and health promotion is undermined by year-on-year cuts to our public health budget. The government has recently published a long-term plan for the NHS. Additional investment in the NHS is always something to welcome, and the plan talks a lot about the importance of prevention. But without increased long-term investment in adult social care and public health, the NHS won't be able to deliver these ambitions. The two go together, and the sooner the government recognise that the better. Mr Mayor, we are going to make a budget reduction in this coming year, but we are determined to minimise the impact on the frontline services, vulnerable people and staff. We are determined this year to work even harder to ensure the older and vulnerable people in the district get the very best care and support, that we can trust this council to help them at times of crisis, and that they will share their ambition to lead long, healthy and active lives. I support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mrs Isherwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support this budget because this budget gives us the opportunity to go ahead with our vision of what we want to do to improve our children's services. One of the main things that we need to focus on is the shift away from acute services, where children are brought into that service and have to be looked after by a social worker. We're looking for a more preventative approach, which will be achieved through the early help strategy, through the early help hubs, through working with partners, through the schools, the police, and using our early intervention teams such as the Edge of Care team, which we are going to be looking at investing in even more, because they are the people that see these families and children before they get to that point of crisis. And in doing so, we reduce the impact on those families. We also need to be looking at sufficiency, which we already have done because by introducing more capacity within our residential care homes, by we're introducing a 2x2 bedded children's home, which we hope will be a model for future investment, so that our children, instead of being placed outside district in expensive out-of-district placements, can be brought back in. Even children within the district who need to be close to family, close to community, will be able to be placed there. We're also looking at recruitment. This is important. We rely far too much on agency. We need our own staff. We need our own Wakefield pool of social workers, and that is why we're spending money on recruiting those social workers, looking after our newly qualified. The AYSE Academy is, as far as I'm aware, the first one of its kind in the country, and it's something we should be proud of as a council, that we are providing that sort of support to our young social care workers who are going to have to go out there and do that special job that they do so well. I do not underestimate how much social workers do. I've been out there on the senior leadership visits, which is something else that we are looking to continue funding, because that's how we can get an idea of all the good work that's going on out there. I'm just going to finish on the opposition have made a big issue of the foster carers. We value foster carers. We need more foster carers. We are aware that we need more foster carers, and that's why we are looking at coming up with a much better offer to get people interested in coming in to care. With regard to the national insurance contributions, people need to be aware that foster carers are self-employed. We cannot pay a national insurance contribution at this time because it could undermine the status of that self-employment. Not... I've been informed by officers that we cannot pay a national insurance contribution on behalf of self-employed. If that is incorrect, I will go back to officers for clarification on that. But as I say, we are looking to improve the offer to foster carers, and when that report is ready, I'm quite happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mrs Cummins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and yes, I am stood up. Budget cuts in the environment will affect those services that matter to residents across our district. Services that include litter clearance and grass cutting. But the public in general are realising that they can help. We have so many volunteers across the district who help in innumerable ways. Consultation conducted in November last year confirmed that people wanted the council to tackle antisocial behaviour. This included fly tipping, which, believe it or not, is down across the district. 1,229 tonnes in 16-17, down to 628 tonnes in 18-19. People are becoming more and more aware of fly tipping and are reporting incidents. This has led to prosecutions, and in one case a vehicle has been seized, and we will soon be crushing it. The council employs many measures to tackle fly tipping, from taking part in the soon-to-begin Keep Britain Tidy campaign to covert CCTV, and we will continue to prosecute anyone who is caught blighting our countryside. Volunteers across the district are very keen to help keep their communities litter-free, and we've recently commenced our Litter Heroes campaign, which will support those volunteers who want to help. We embarked a couple of years ago on looking to expand some of our service by selling into the private sector to support employment and bring revenue into this council, and we continue to embrace commercialisation. We can boast increased income from pest control, now employing 3 operatives and delivering a competitive service to residents and businesses across the district. Bereavement Services sees additional income from plaques and memory tree sales at both our crematoriums. We are also competing well in promoting our bulky waste services to businesses across the district. Primary authority income is set to rise as we pick up more and more businesses, both locally and nationally, all wanting environmental health help and support to ensure their businesses comply with health and safety legislations. We're also looking again at delivering a pet cemetery in the district and are currently talking to Gateshead BC, who deliver a very successful service. We will continue to look at ways we can promote our services and bring in additional income. The council also realised that the most vulnerable families across the area require additional support. That's why we are providing more support through the Food Aid Network programme, both at food banks and food aid providers. Innovative ways of raising funds for those fleeing domestic abuse to provide them with basic items they all need are supported by this council. Community groups can apply for neighbourhood improvement funding and community development grants. These groups, in many cases, provide valuable community activities and support. So even though we've had massive cuts to our budgets, we can still boast that we continue to support our volunteers, communities, those who are vulnerable, and look at innovative ways to bring revenue into this council. I support this budget.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak in favour of the budget. The purpose of the council is to make Wakefield a place where people thrive, businesses succeed, and visitors are welcome. And I would like to also pay thanks to our Chief Finance Officer, Neil Warren, and to the rest of the officers who do a sterling job year on year managing the council's finances. Last year, I believe we saw 2 Conservative councils go bust, whereas here in Wakefield, the Labour-run council is not only making the savings and delivering a balanced budget, but we are continuing to protect frontline services and supporting the most vulnerable across the district. In the coming financial year, we are looking to invest in technology and ICT within the council. Technology underpins the delivery of most of the services we offer, and as a result, improvements in technology can have a positive effect on both council employees and members of the public. We will see improvements in integration, system scalability, innovation and agility, which will lead to enhanced frontline customer services. We also have a number of projects in the pipeline which include the piloting of innovative digital technology, and this includes things like use of chatbots and robotic process automation. It's going to be an exciting year for technology, and I'm looking forward to seeing the positive impact our ambitious plans within the Council have on customer experience. Secondly, I want to mention SCAMP. Our Strategic and Corporate Asset Management Plan and the 3 programmes it is delivered through has enabled the Council to ensure that we have a portfolio that's both fit for purpose and financially efficient. After a lot of hard work and consultation in 2018, the coming year brings with it huge opportunities to increase our investments and portfolio further. This plan has the potential to deliver significant social value for our residents across the district and will also create income to fund key services across the council. I am also here, Mr Mayor, to represent the constituents of Wakefield, and particularly those of Thorns and Lupsey. And I'm also an avid reader of the Wakefield Express, so I'd like to share a quote that one of our Tory councillors put in there last week. It says, "I'm a Tory and I want to see more people keep more of their money in their pockets." The 2019 budget marks 9 consecutive years of Tory austerity for local authorities. This year we've seen Conservative MPs voting to slash a further £1 billion in funding. This of course means that local authorities up and down the country have no choice but to raise council tax. And my question is, who does that affect here? It affects the people of Wakefield. It's those that are out of pocket. Instead of properly funding social care, we see the government dump the crisis onto council taxpayers through the social care precept. And who does that leave out of pocket? It's the people here in Wakefield. We've seen a loss of 20,000 police officers nationally, 1,200 of them in West Yorkshire. And again, instead of the government properly funding this service, guess what? We see the police and precept rise this year. And again, who's left out of pocket? It's the people of Wakefield. So, I've said it time and time again, I know it's been mentioned multiple times, but it does bear repeating. Austerity was a political choice. It clearly isn't working, and the people of Wakefield are sick to the back teeth of it. It needs to end now. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, Mrs Spade.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually feel very privileged today to update you on some of the significant cultural and leisure investments across the district, despite the difficult financial environment in which we operate. So, picking up on the leader's speech, first of all, we have work due to commence on the 5 Towns Leisure and Wellbeing Hub in March. This will include, among other things, a 10-lane swimming pool. The centre will also have a gym, exercise studios, climbing activity, cafe and soft play area, as well as meeting and referral rooms for community use. Outside there will be 4 tennis courts, an interactive play area and a 3G artificial pitch. This facility will provide local people with the first-class facilities they deserve, benefiting both current residents and future generations. The new state-of-the-art leisure facility will give people the chance to access sport, recreation, social and wellbeing activities and enjoy a healthy life. It will play a part in tackling health issues such as childhood obesity, long-term respiratory and circulatory diseases and mental health conditions. It will also support our efforts to reduce social isolation among older people. Also, the leader has already referred to the 4.4 million grants that we received from the government's First Cultural Development Fund. Coined as WX3, the Wakefield Creative Industries Growth Platform comprises an innovation hub based at Production Park in South Kirby, which will feature managed workspaces for creative businesses, and a creative hub in Wakefield City Centre that will connect cultural institutions, creative businesses, entrepreneurs and students in the fields of art, creativity and technology. Overall, the focus will be on ensuring local residents have the skills and opportunity to work in our growing creative sector and in providing a platform to showcase their work and skills. This fabulous programme, and it really is exciting, together with our other cultural and creative attractions across the district, will put us on the national map as a recognised cultural and creative hub and increase our reputation as a great place to live, learn and work. Also, I'm delighted to confirm that works to Pontefract Castle will be completed in April at the start of the next financial year. This 3.5 million Key to the North project was launched in 2016 to take the monument off Historic England's at-risk register and improve access to parts of the castle not seen by the public for many years. It's also seen the restoration and extension of the Victorian Arts and Crafts Barn to provide improved learning facilities, a shop, cafe and exhibition space. The castle has been preserved for future generations. Visitor figures have increased significantly and we have a programme of activities planned that will boost visitor numbers still further. All in all, as a council, I believe that despite budget cuts, we have good reason to be proud of the investments we are making right across our district and of the benefits they will bring to local residents. I support the budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burton.
Yeah, just two things, if I may, Mr Mayor. Despite the cuts that we've all heard about, I very much welcome the investment in children's services. Prior to this meeting, we had the briefing, of course, and during this meeting we've heard a lot about fostering and the core part that plays in the keeping children safe agenda. It is a priority for us, and if you look at page 53, you'll see the budget consultation, the public consultation, identified keeping children safe as a priority for residents as well. It's up there with antisocial behaviour and adult social care as a concern for residents. So I'm pleased we can respond to that, and also from the advice from Ofsted, etc. as well. The other thing I'm pleased about is the investment in the Nottingham Vision and Master Plan. It's a long-awaited, coordinated approach to investment in the town, and along with partners, Mr Mayor, we look forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to be brief because I'm a Democrat. I'm going to support this budget, but what I just want to just clear one or two things up is this, quite clearly. £240 million will go through this council in the next financial year. Massive amounts of money that's needed to secure our services, and we spend an inordinate amount of time, quite right I suppose because I'm a Democrat, debating issues in and around £700,000 out of a total budget of £240 million. But nevertheless, we're quite entitled to do that because that's how we operate. But just to make one thing clear, what I said was, I've never been a big supporter of the Epworth. But I put that right by suggesting and saying in my contribution that if the experts tell me that that creates footfall into this city of ours, that'd be the case. You see, I'm not a great big fan of Wakefield Trinity, but I went to watch them last Thursday night against Catalan Dragons. So the point I'm making is this, that don't try to take people's contribution to this chamber out of context. I've never been a supporter of, but I'm of the opinion, I listen to the experts, and if it creates footfall and that has a positive effect on the viability of this city and the surrounding areas, sometimes in the good old world of you have to speculate, to accumulate, to make things happen. And I am in support of this budget because I also take the view that if the opposition was serious, but deadly serious about wanting to take the reins or take control of this council, which they're quite entitled to do once they've reached the magical numbers, you would have thought they'd have took a coach and horses to the budget generally. £240 million of expenditure. So I take the view from that, because we've looked at some particular headings in their amendments, that the opposition in this council, by and large, quite satisfied, probably a lot satisfied with 99.97% of this budget. I support the budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harvey.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I want to make a record that as a newly elected Conservative councillor, I want to say that the local government definitely has bear the brunt and also contributed to the local government funding shortage in the last 10 years. So why I say that? Because there is a legacy we got left by the Labour government. So money has to come somewhere. So I have to commend the council. We have tried our best to work, but however, this is yet again a failed budget. Let's have a look at what on record, okay? We have got £1.3 million of business rate levy. The government actually recommended to put that on 2019 and 2020 budget, okay? But however, this council decided to shift it back to 2018 and 19 and create that £22.2 million shortage. Okay, so the point is, although the levy itself, it is actually the settlement of last settlement figure, 2013 and 14, but we do have this money. If anything, this lump sum can split into a few years on the budget instead of just be accounting for last year's budget and then leave us in the hole of £1.3 million, okay? There are some other issues about £3 million of accounting errors in this budget. There are issues of £14.4 million has to be come out from somewhere, somehow, to actually rescue, resuscitate our failed children's service. And that itself, people in Wakefield, you need to know where your taxpayer money has gone to. So this council has a good record, not quite good enough to actually say they are the council for business. We can call this council a council of demolition, maybe. Market has gone. Hepworth, well, yes, Councillor Bob just now say we have so many more food banks swing into our region. But when you don't have food, what will you be fed with? According to Councillor Bob, culture and more culture. So 600 jobs we said we are going to create is pie in the sky. So where exactly is that economic benefit to have more council? And on this one, I do share my concern with Councillor Tooley, even you didn't want to say it properly. Okay? So let's look at what we are going to do now, how we are to make this budget work. I think that we need to actually come out at least to support the Conservative Party's amendment, because this is what affects. Okay, so. But I know, but is it your conscience? I know it's gone, sorry. But every single one of you saying that Arthur should have died without seeing that 20... Let's put it that way. One more. Okay, thank you. But what I'm saying is last week, one of the elderly disabled person on that street nearly fell in the hole with his stick. So this pothole, Councillor Smalley, doesn't matter how loud you shout at me, you are going to fix it for us, okay? So what I want to say to this is we need to think about how we as a council to generate more business, to support business in this council, to make sure that we got that business rate. We actually have 100% of the business retention last year we piloted. So there is money somewhere, somehow, but we need to make sure we manage this council properly. We actually make sure that we work together. Instead, we just have this doomsday peddling all the time. And I am a proud Wakefielder. I want people to say, look, I love the city, I want to make it better and better, better again. But stop talking about austerity. Stop making any more complaints and get on with it. If you cannot do the job, let us do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I just have to say, I've got to, so I'm going to. I can't believe, I just think that all of you, each and every one of you, if I asked you individually and on your own, if you wanted an in-house foster carer to have a pension, you would say yes. Right? But because that is a group, an individual vote, and you will never go against your party, I believe you all have just lied there.
Whoa.
It's not, no.
Councillor Cruz, you're relating to the amendment. We're on the substantive motion.
Right, sorry about that then. Well, I won't say anything else, and I'll just say that I think you've made a really, really big mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good budget, a difficult budget, with the cuts that this council's had to take from this Tory government, or Blue Kip as they're called now, I think, on TV. And Councillor Harvey mentions value for money. Does she believe that £6 billion for 6 DUP members paid by this government is good value for money? That £6 billion could have been put in adult social care around the country to support the elderly people in this country. But no, she doesn't believe that. She believes her government is worth £6 billion to pay them, not to support the government.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a few points on the recent contributions that the opposition have made to this debate. I'm sure they would like us to stop talking about austerity. I'm sure they would. The actual reality is that since they took over in 2010, that they have progressively reduced the local government funding, not just reduced it by huge amounts, but reduced it by more than any other sector of government spending. At the same time, as everyone acknowledges, that in terms of the different arms of social care as well as other things, it's actually under local government that the greatest increase in the underlying burden is occurring. And that's where they've concentrated their biggest cuts. And the fact is that it's not an accident that the council taxpayer is bearing an increasing share of the burden. It is a perfectly deliberate open government policy that progressively they will totally eliminate support from national level for local services. And the locally available taxes are manifestly unsuited to actually apply a fair burden. The local taxes are suited to a top-up. They're not suited to carrying the whole burden, particularly of services that increase year by year. And we actually had a reference again to supposedly the debt situation that supposedly the last Labour government had left. And I think it is absolutely worth reminding the opposition that since they took over in 2010, they're absolutely on course to double the national debt. We have the national debt of every single war and so forth, including the credit crunch, right up to 2010. World War after World War, depression after depression. And the Tories are actually managing, since they took over, to build up just as much and more debt since 2010 as every single penny of debt built up before that time. The notion that they can make any suggestion to us that we are anything other than the people who apply a responsible attitude to the finances of this country as well as to the services that this country needs, the notion that they should attempt to apply to us any suggestion of irresponsibility just flies totally, Mr Mayor, flies absolutely in the face of the facts.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, in support of the budget, but can I just make a little comment in advance? I noticed that Councillor Ahmed, in his introduction here, in terms of literacy and numeracy, actually slipped in.
Members that have to speak now on the item that will be
I am doing. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am doing, Mr Mayor, in terms of the education budget. I'm speaking in terms of the education budget and the comments that was made from our opposition here today. The education budget and the details that are being proposed within it for the future of our children, our citizens of Wakefield, are very much welcome. And in terms of literacy and numeracy, I will actually say that I believe we're all well versed in literacy and numeracy within this council chamber. The comments in relation to the budget that I'm supporting today, I refer to our cabinet members' reports which actually shows how good this authority is in looking at the diminishing resources year on year and at the same time trying to prioritise for those in need, our elderly, our people, our young people in care and our people across the district. I am totally at a loss as to how mention can be made today of being a proud Wakefield citizen and at the same time supporting a government that's actually cutting millions and millions year on year to support our services within the district. The minuscule money that's been put to highways, we've heard a lot about potholes, supported by this council and a small element from the government, and we're not alone in this. Local authorities up and down the country are begging for money to actually deal with potholes across the district. So let's put the blame where it lies and not on this budget and how this budget has tried to cope in the years of austerity which are still ongoing. I'm fearful, Mr. Mayor, in terms of how we're going to deal with things in the future, because this budget that was being presented today actually includes the last 1% that the government has actually placed on the local authorities to collect from the local people as another tax to support adult social care. What's going to happen, Mr. Mayor, I fear, in terms of the next year, because nobody is saying yet there's any commitment in the Green Paper to support additional funding for those that we care about in the community. I also support today the budget, as has been mentioned by Councillor Mrs Cummins, in terms of the funding that we are giving towards the food kitchens across the district. Whoever thought in this day and age we'd be having to look at a budget and hear today about food kitchens, to people that are actually working out there, doing their best within the system they've got, within our area of the district, to actually help themselves, and this is where our compassion comes in. Because for the God's sake, who can ever think that somebody going out to work would have to be looking towards a budget today to actually put money to put a loaf of bread on their table? In this day and age, it's a disgrace. Mr. Mayor, I totally support this budget. I hope in the future that we can continue with the investment that the leaders give in, with the investment in jobs, and we can enhance people's lives in this district, because that's what we're here for. That's our compassion.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any more speakers? Councillor Mrs Taylor.
Thank you. I'd like to address this to Councillor Spake, if I might, please. We have this wonderful sports centre going up in Pontefract that's going to cost £20 million, being built on Greenbelt land, I may add. If we've got so little money, why can you spend £20 million on a big sports centre in Pontefract, but the only facility that Horbury and Ossett had, which was a 9-hole golf course, all finance was withdrawn from that, and we have to look after it ourselves with volunteers.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers on this debate? Councillor Graham Isherwood.
Thank you. I was quite content to sit here listening to all that rubbish. But I feel now it took 18 months to get that big, horrible sports centre in Pontefract Park. It took 18 months to deliver that. Of course, you wouldn't know about that, would you? But I'd like to, while the Cabinet members are patting themselves on the back, which they invariably do, I'd just like to thank the people that actually run with that for 12, 18 months. Celia Laughlin, I think Matt Morley were there. Anyway, there was an whole raft of people that were involved in it. We went out to public consultation, we stood in supermarkets, we rode on trains to find out the distances. Is it easy enough to get to? Was it, and the perfect ideal place was in Pontefract Park, but it's on the Greenbelt. Bus stops outside, train stations outside, and I'm desperately sorry you've lost your golf course in Horbury. I'm sure you fought tooth and nail, but if I remember rightly, they lost one in Pontefract Park as well. But that's just a mere thing. I was so proud when that paper came and this council approved it. But don't forget, that had a cost. That big sports centre had a cost. They lost one in Nottingley, They lost one in Castleford, and when this is one built, they'll lose one in Pontefract. So it's not just a Pontefract sports centre, it's one for the district. There's one in Wakefield, no car parking, like I don't know about that one, but anyway, there's no car parking for it, but there's one in middle of Wakefield. Why shouldn't that side of the district have one? And the cost of it all, Minthorpe as well, they lost Minthorpe, and we managed to achieve that, did that little scratty scrutiny group that we had. And I'm proud of that little group, and I tell you what, I don't give monkeys what you say. It's a good budget, we're all going to support it, we're the caring people, you're the opportunists. End of story.
Councillor Holwell.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Since the provision of facilities in Pontefract has been raised, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that, far from it. And we do have a swimming pool in Wakefield. We have the refurbishment of Sun Lane, which is very nice, but it's not adequate for this side of Wakefield. We were promised a long, long time ago swimming facilities in Ossett and Aubrey, and we haven't got them. And I think the point that my friend Councillor Taylor was making was we don't resent what you've got, we just want something on our side that's more equal to that, rather than what we have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On this issue about the swimming pools, I've had the privilege of living in Surrey for 6 months until I came back to the good old country of Yorkshire. In Surrey, you can't go anywhere. You have to get 6 buses, 7 trains to get a swimming pool. In this district, we've been blessed for years with the amount of swimming pools. It's never seen anywhere else in the country. Everywhere else, you have isolated areas, which we're doing now, which we can't afford to keep the swimming pools open. So unfortunately, we have to travel a bit more. You've got all of Wakefield for the Stat area, for the Sun Lane. You've got all of the 5 towns for Pontefract. We have to travel. I've lost a swimming pool in my ward. There's hardly any council-run facilities. It's all community-run. We don't even have the golf course or any sports facilities. It's all community group-run. So you have to travel, but we're having to travel is, like Graham says, it's in the best place possible. Nowhere else in this whole country has 7 swimming pools in 5 towns. It's appalling. We keep arguing about great investment that's come into this town, and it's not on the budget. It's in the budget, and we should support it and not keep harping on about a swimming pool that you have in the area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hemingway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak fully in support of this excellent budget. I would just say to the opposition, you keep bringing up this issue about a swimming pool in North West. Well, why haven't you put it in your budget proposals? Why haven't you proposed a swimming pool in the North West? Is it because the council doesn't have the money to actually build a swimming pool because we're being cut by central government so much that it's not possible for us to build it? If it was, you'd have put it in your alternative budget proposals.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any more speakers for this debate? If not, thank you, colleagues. That concludes the debate on the proposed budget. Councillor Box, as mover of the Cabinet recommendations, you now have the right of reply to the debate.
I'll be brief-ish, Mr Mayor, and try and answer some of the points that have been raised. The one thing that the Conservatives have ignored from the speech I made, and I estimate about certainly 20% of it was to do with austerity. And that was deliberate, because I feel passionately about it, as we all do on this side of the chamber. And I quoted some very stark figures. And it's interesting, we've got 11 members of the opposition opposite. Not one of them, not one, has mentioned any single one of those figures. And yet they're telling us that they care so deeply and not mentioned one thing. And Kevin Swift is actually spot on with trying to pretend it never happened. Now, Nadeem Ahmed last year said he thinks austerity should continue. And that's his right to do so, actually, because there are 1 or 2 people who think that. There's Councillor Ahmed and there's Jacob Rees-Mogg. That's the two of them. And Nadeem is the local government equivalent of Jacob Rees-Mogg, clearly. And that's what he said. It's on that was good, that one. That was good, that one. Come on. And the presser here, I mean, that's a good line, come on. The fact of the matter is that's on film. That's on film. Now then, I can play this game as well, Councillor Sanders. Yes or no, do you agree that austerity should continue? So there we are. He won't say. He can play that, he can throw it at his colleagues, but he can't say whether or not, on the most important issue of the day, he supports austerity or not. And let's look at Councillor Stansby, who tells us every meeting she's an accountant, as though that gives you some kind of political insight, of course. And you've been through the figures for 10 years, have you? Okay, tell me this. Tell me this. How much has been taken from this council in the last 10 years by your government? She doesn't know. Doesn't know. As Oscar Wilde said, you know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. And you talk about what your government's going to introduce, right? Let me tell you what Theresa May said last year. We will introduce a system so that the families of bereaved parents who have lost an infant don't have to pay. Has that legislation been introduced yet? No, it has not. No, it hasn't. So don't try and tell us about, how much you care and we don't. And Councillor Harvey, that was a good speech, but it's the wrong place. No, it is. That's the speech you need to make when you're competing against Anthony Calvert to be the representative, the MP for Wakefield. I'm just passing on what I hear. So it's not true to say that we don't help business. I actually, in part of the speech, listed a whole range of areas where we work very closely with business, and part of what I do, one of the key roles I've got, along with Denise, is to meet business on a regular basis. Indeed, we've got a meeting tomorrow with a key business player in Wakefield. That's our role, and I have to say I think we do that very well, and the figures speak for themselves. This is a well-managed authority. And when Councillor Stansby says she's been through all the books, she's found this, this and this, well, I have to say that you've not contacted me about that. I'm unaware that you've been in touch with the Chief Executive or indeed the Chief Financial Officer, which you would expect somebody to do. Councillor Sanders, you talk about the highway network. Do you know what it would cost to bring the entire highway network up to scratch in this country? No. That's another one. It would cost £13 billion to bring the entire highway network up to scratch. And yet your government is prepared to spend, at the moment, 66 billion on a railway that nobody in this district, well, hardly anybody in this district wants. Do you agree with your government? Should be spending that money? It's quiet now, isn't it? Quiet now when it comes to answering questions on this yes or I quite like this yes or no game, Quite like it. Not very good at it. Sorry? You don't like it? So your government's wrong. And if it's wrong on that, it's wrong on everything. And by the way, can I just make it clear? I wasn't the one who promised...
Chancellor Box, 5 minutes is up.
Sorry? I thought I could take over from the hour, didn't you?
You've had your 5 minutes, Councillor Box.
Well, I can't. We don't time fly. Thank you for supporting me.
Thank you, Councillor Box. We are required to take a recorded vote and will now take the vote on agenda items 5 and 6, the revenue budget and council tax proposals, capitals and investment strategy, capital programme and treasury management reports. I will now ask our Chief Legal Officer to take the recorded vote. Julian.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, councillors, I'll call out your names if you could indicate clearly whether you are for the budget, against it, or whether you wish to abstain. Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain.
Councillor Ms Austin. Councillor Mrs Binns. Councillor Mrs Blezard. Councillor Box. Councillor Burton. Councillor Byford. Councillor Carrington. Councillor Ms Cruz. Councillor Mrs Cummings. Councillor Dagger. Councillor Ellis. Councillor Farmer. Councillor Forster. Councillor A. Garbett. Councillor Mrs Garbett. Councillor Michael Graham. Councillor Mrs Graham. Councillor Mrs Harvey. Councillor Hemingway. Councillor Mrs Heptonstall. Councillor Heptonstall. Abstain. Thank you. Councillor Miss Hepworth. Councillor Mrs Holwell. Councillor Hunt. Councillor G Isherwood. Councillor Mrs Isherwood. Councillor Mrs Jeffrey. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Keith. Councillor Mrs Kitchen. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mrs Lund. Councillor Mrs Malkin. Councillor Manifield. Councillor Mrs Masterman. Councillor Mrs Mitchell. Councillor Morley. Councillor Miss Picking. Councillor Mrs Rhodes. Councillor Mrs Rowley. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Mrs Scott. Councillor Ms Spate. Councillor Ms Stansby. Councillor Stokes. Councillor Swift. Councillor Mrs Taylor. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Tennant. Councillor Mrs Tennant King. Councillor Tully. Councillor Wallace. Councillor Ward. Councillor Wassell. Councillor Miss Whitehouse. Councillor Miss Williams. Thank you.
Very attention please. 446, abstentions 12, against 0. Thank you for your attendance, and I now declare the budget meeting closed.